for the musical year. So, Rachel.
Can I nominate Ian Blake?
Really? Can everybody second that
second.
nomination? Fantastic. Any other nominations? No? Councillor Blades, would you like to move and sit here and take over proceedings?
Thank you.
Can we do a bit of rain?
You wish to.
Thanks, colleagues. We'll go straight on and nominate for Vice Chair. Got any nominations?
Nominate Rachel Creevy, please.
Councillor Creevy, thank you. Second.
Second that.
Lynn, thank you. And any other nominations? Will you accept the position, Councillor
I
Creevy?
will indeed.
Thank you.
Do you want to round the applause?
I got a round of applause.
I think it's only fair.
Thank you.
Apologies for absence and notification of substitutes.
Just quickly before I say the nomination, the absences, if you can try and use your microphone just for the public gallery, it'd be appreciated. So we have apologies from Councillor Nightingale, Keir, Branson and Kane, however with Councillor Lewis and Leighton substituting.
Just to keep the committee informed, the article in the process of renominating membership for vacancies, and we'll find out in due course. Moving straight on, any declaration of interest? None, thank you. Minutes, can we approve the minutes as a correct record of the meeting held on June the 18th? Agreed? Yeah. Thank you. Cabinet response to recommendations. Alan Weston, I believe, has joined us.
Yes, so Alan, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Brilliant. Would you like to provide the overview to the members, if that's okay?
Yeah, so I think the key action and the key update this morning is in relation to the first recommendation, which is, so members may recall the Scrutiny on Transport subcommittee was around the integration between rail, bus and active travel. And the first was around bringing forward a report around the actual physical integration. So what I'm about to show is a presentation, which is a version which I think Connor is going to distribute after this meeting. It's in the paper pack for Transport Committee, which meets next week, to give you a broad overview of where we kind of sit currently. So I'm just going to share that. So this is a detailed piece of analysis that we have done to pick up on just waiting for it to come through. There you go, hopefully you can see that.
It's showing now.
Brilliant. So there is an analysis of each of the stations, and this is the summary that we've included. Like I say, there's deep dive and there's more information behind this, but just give you an overview. This provides a brief analysis or a brief summary of the situation at each of our stations, so the number of train services, the number of users. There is a national mapping piece that's been done around station facilities, so how many of those KPIs have been achieved, and then provides a really brief summary of the interchange between rail and car, rail and bus, and rail and walking, wheeling and cycling. And then included on each of these, we've done a substantial piece of mapping, and it's probably quite small and difficult for members to see, but happy to go into deep dive around this. And what this does is looks at the interchange between each of those modes and shows it on a geographic basis. So in this case, from Allen's West, the highlighted areas are where you can walk or get a bus within 30 minutes. And the red lines on the map show the direct bus routes, and then also mapped on there are the employment land and the major housing sites that are coming forward. So, like I say, in summary, we've done that for each of the stations, and so it's a comprehensive piece of work that enables us then to look at our capital investment programme and to improve those kind of interchanges. I'm not planning to go through each of these, and what I would say is a couple of things. There are two stations that are incomplete in this station pack at the moment. That is Middlesbrough and Thornaby. The reason for that is that there are a substantial number of rail services and a substantial number of bus services. So the mapping of the interchange between those two things is a substantial piece of work, and hasn't quite been completed as yet. And the second thing is that since this work was started, the timetable for December 2025 has been published, and there are a number of changes to the train times. So we will need to go back through some of this analysis to look at how the times are working with trains arriving into stations and buses departing and vice versa. So there is a bit of an update that we need to do subsequent to that, but wanted to make the committee aware of the work. The recommendation one from the review around the physical interventions and the physical integration between rail, bus and active trolley.
Thank you for that, Alan. Has anyone got any questions for Alan? Tony?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Alan. All the evening. On the graphic that's displayed for Alan's West, the second bullet down, car parking, car interchange of car parking, 6 informal and 50 local. You know, knowing Alan's West, where does the 50 local, I'm very sure it's the housing estate next to it, or across the road? I don't see any other 50 local parking spots at Alan's West railway station.
Yeah, I'll need to validate that with the report, so I will come back directly with that information. Like I say, 6 at the informal parking directly outside the station, but I would need to check the detailed report to see where those 50 local are and what distance and where they are, because like I say, there's no obvious other location in the vicinity there for those to be included. So I will double check the detail on that one.
Lovely, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Anyone got any further questions? Councillor Creevy? Yeah.
So am I right in thinking that this will get filtered down via our transport committee reps? So to us locally, yeah? Okay. No, that's fine.
The same presentation pack is being circulated, published earlier this week for Transport Committee, which takes place on Tuesday of next week, which will give an opportunity for Transport Committee members to discuss in a little bit more detail. I think the key is that this is the detailed analysis on which we're then looking at the investment programme. How do we improve those things? So, for example, here we have proposals around working with Stockton colleagues, particularly on this one that we're looking at, around the formalisation of the parking and how do we actually make other improvements at that station.
Okay, thank you.
I presume, Alan, by next week, Middlesbrough and Thornaby will be finished, will they?
I think we would have finished them, Chair, but like I say, because of the interchanges changing in terms of the rail timetable, I think we may just do an update based on the new timetable when that analysis is complete. I think the key for the reason that there is gap in those is particularly around the bus and rail interchange. And whilst we might not have the exact numbers, we do know that they are highly connected with those onward journeys. So I think what this is highlighting is where there is less integration and less kind of connectivity. And obviously there are investment planned and taking place within Thornaby and Middlesbrough as well. So I do think it will take a little while. And like I say, there will be an update because there are some substantial changes in the timetable from December 2025 onwards as well.
Right, so I presume Darlington, which is probably the biggest station we have, and Hartlepool are already complete.
They are. Those two are. There is less connectivity, slightly less than Middlesbrough and Thornaby. I think off the top of my head, I think it's 9 or 10 trains an hour through Thornaby and Middlesbrough, and a substantial number of bus services. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Anyone got any more questions? Thank you. The recommendation is that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee is asked to note the response of Cabinet and the required actions as established in paragraphs 7 and 8, which I'm sure members have read the papers and the response of the Cabinet on 7 and 8. So can we approve them recommendations, please?
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you. Right, we'll go on to section 6, recommendation tracking, to receive and consider a report from the Governance and Scrutiny Officer providing the recommendation tracking. To you, Connor.
As provided in the report, I will largely take it as read. We have in Appendix 1 a summary of the remaining recommendations that haven't been closed yet. There's a few on there for closure due to the fact that we have either concluded on them or we've received an update. However, just bringing it back to committee to confirm. I guess as was provided, you've received the update for recommendation 12 as Alan is presenting it. And we can bring that back again to confirm if you'd like to close it. So,
yeah,
that's yourself, Chair.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, I think obviously we'll see what the work programme is for the following year and decide how that continues, if that's okay.
No, of course.
Okay, thank you. And any questions on the recommendation tracker, Councillor Hazeltine?
Thanks, Chair. Just could we have more information on where we are with Principle 8 and Principle 18, strong relationships with audit? We don't seem to be, there's nothing on in the appendix about that particularly. And in the appendix itself, we've got, I think it's 12. No, it's not 12. Again, to do with scrutiny governance is assigned, but we've not moved forward with it. It's getting the position for the protocol for scrutiny. We agreed quite a bit last year, but things have moved on. Other things have come into the equation, the best value review and the other stuff that's come in. We've had several meetings and discussions around the scrutiny protocol. It seemed that we were moving in the right direction, and I was hoping at this meeting today that we would be confirming the position on the scrutiny protocol for the TVCA. Apparently we're not. I'd just like an explanation around that, please, and where we currently are with it, and when and how will it then be a complete recommendation taken on board by Cabinet. My understanding is at the moment there is a feeling that Cabinet would not accept the full scrutiny protocol. Can you clarify for me, please?
I'll come in on a few of the points, and then if Tom doesn't mind coming in on the Cabinet points. So the recommendation tracking is exclusively the recommendations from your subcommittees. Yeah. So it's just to consolidate, to show where you've made recommendations as a subcommittee and the status of those as they go through. In terms of the principle on the scrutiny protocol around audit and governance, the intention is following this meeting, I'll arrange a meeting with Councillor Blades and Councillor Porter to establish what direction we'd like to take. We have likely discussed, there's an operation in Birmingham of a memorandum of understanding between the audit committee and their overview and scrutiny committee to effectively establish who looks at what, but it may well work inviting Councillor Porter to the Finance and Resources Subcommittee in and around those areas. In terms of 18, which was remuneration and status, that is something that, if you don't mind, Tom, I'll pass over to yourself to discuss.
Thank you, Chair. So I think there's a couple of points. I think on the point around the sort of interrelationship between this committee and the Audit and Governance Committee. So there's an Audit and Governance Committee just for the committee's benefit on, I think, the 18th of September, where they're going to be getting a report on the draft internal audit plan and also an update on the current position with the external auditor, EY. So that committee is looking at that in detail, obviously, because that falls within their remit now, I think Connor's right, we just need to understand if this committee wants to get involved in that, how that sort of dovetails with the work that Audit and Governance Committee is doing through Mandy Porter. So happy to explore that, but I guess it's just making sure that the two committees are clear on their roles and remits. In terms of the scrutiny protocol, my understanding, Connor, is that Cabinet approved everything except the remuneration point around this committee, and the Cabinet report from memory talked about waiting until the devolution bill became an act, because that does talk about overview and scrutiny committees and remuneration, and I think the plan was we wanted to wait to that to become a bill so that we can make sure we consider that in full before bringing it back to Cabinet for a further review.
Can I come back to
Yeah, of course, yeah.
That's all well and good, but let's look at a bit of history around scrutiny. 2-3 years ago we had the very first meeting, and we had an absolutely outstanding meeting, apart from, if I'm honest, the behaviour of Mayor Ouchin at that meeting, around scrutiny. Lots of facts were cleared up by Emma, lots of agreements of the scrutiny committee and officers was made, and I felt then that we were moving on. We haven't budged in 2 years. This disagreement and recommendations that went to Cabinet last year, all well and good, it has moved it a little bit, but the last year has been critical in discussing the role of scrutiny and getting the ability of this scrutiny committee to do its role without interference or hindrance from various sides. And here we are a year later, and we're still dilly-dallying around. It's not good enough, to be fair. We must take some of the responsibility as a committee for not pushing it hard enough, but so should the TDCA take some responsibility. We should be sitting here today saying, this is the future, this is how we're moving on, and we're not. It's going to be another year before we get anything, isn't it? And that, to be honest, doesn't give the public out there any respect in what we're doing or confidence in what we're doing. And I just feel that we need to do things, I can't say it quickly because nothing ever happens quickly, but at a pace that gives us confidence in what we can achieve. I don't think we've got that at the moment. And to be fair, personally, I've been around since 2015 with this committee. We're no farther forward. It's just frustrating. And I'm sorry if I sound angry. I am. I love scrutiny. I think it's one of the best things in the world when done. And we're not doing it. Well, I tell a lie. The Education Committee and the Transport Committee, absolutely brilliant. We are getting there, but it's difficult for us as members to embrace it because we've no clear guidelines that we can say, look, this is what we're doing. We need it clarifying and clarifying quickly. But that ran over, Chair, but I think the points are right.
Yeah, I'll just let Connor come in.
Completely agree, Councillor Dean. I think if we look through the agenda, so obviously we have the work programme coming up and terms of reference review. That's where I want to have this conversation to go, what isn't in there that you need? What do we need to agree? So establishing the role of the committee.
How about on the Constitution, right? It's illegal at the minute, isn't it, my understanding?
I couldn't.
It's not a valid Constitution.
The Constitution.
How can we agree anything under the Constitution if the Constitution's not correct?
I'm not sure exactly what, I get your frustration, Councillor Hazeltine, and I'm absolutely committed to making sure that as TVSA officers we support this committee to do the scrutiny that you're here to do. You say we haven't made any progress, but obviously this committee agrees its work plan and there was a lot of scrutiny undertaken last year. If you think there's improvements we can make, we're absolutely here to do that with you.
I do, but today is not the day for them to be discussed. But it doesn't feel like we move. We've asked questions about various things over the years. We want to look at this, we want to do that, and we've been stopped, left, right and centre. You can't do that. The legal people say you can't do that. The Constitution won't let you do that.
Well, I think we've got obviously the work plan on the agenda today, so the committee obviously needs to form a view as to what you want to scrutinise, and then we can discuss.
I accept that, I agree with that. I've had discussions with members and colleagues about that. That is correct. But it does, what we decide on the work programme depends on what the protocol is for the scrutiny. If I argument sake, and I said, I want a quick look at Tees Works, we've just had a grant for £4.5 million, I want to look at that, see what the value for money are. Every time we've asked for that, we've been told you can't do that.
Well, I think...
But if the protocol's clear, I won't ask for that, if I know what the protocol is.
Yeah.
But if I do ask for it, I'll make sure it sits in with the protocol. I'll let, we must move on, Chair, sorry.
No,
I get what you're saying, but all I'm asking in return, I'm not playing, I am having a dig, I suppose. I just want us to work together and get there.
absolutely.
Give
So,
us confidence, information, and the reality that this is how scrutiny will work at the TVCA, and with everybody, no disrespect to officers, honestly. I think you're a fantastic sort of job, new, old, whatever. It's just been difficult to get where we want to get because there's always been a legal or constitutional argument stopping us from doing that. We need clarity.
no, I absolutely get your frustration. And look, you've got my commitment that I'm going to work with this committee to make sure that we give you what you need to do your job. I think obviously there's question marks around this is the combined authorities overview and scrutiny committee and what falls within that remit. But I think when we get into the work programme session, we can explore where you want to go and we can then get a view as to whether that's appropriate or not.
Is the Constitution legal at the moment?
The Constitution's legal. We've committed in our improvement plan to review it and update it, but it's legal, yeah.
So why, when we asked for the call-in thing, and the call-in was done, it was stated clearly in writing that the Constitution wasn't legal?
So that's been amended though now.
It has?
Yeah, there was an error in the Constitution.
Why haven't I seen that?
Well, it all went through Cabinet and it was approved at Cabinet.
But why hasn't Scrutiny seen that?
Well, you can ask to look at that if that's one of
Shouldn't
the...
it be, if you've altered the Constitution, shouldn't it have come to Scrutiny for just for us to look at and approve or recommend or accept? Shouldn't we have seen that before or after Cabinet so that we know?
So, Cabinet is the body that makes decisions on the Constitution, but if you want to get involved in when we review the Constitution, that's absolutely, you know...
It just proves my point about the Scrutiny not being able to do its work. We should have seen that.
But Scrutiny agrees a work programme. If you want to include the Constitution review as part of that, then you're absolutely, you know, able to do
No
that.
disrespect, Tom, honestly, but we're going around in circles
Well,
here.
No, I don't think so, because
Why?
the Cabinet is the body that agrees amendments to the Constitution, which they did.
So why did you come to us first for a...
Well, there's no requirement for it to come to you. If you want to talk about the Constitution and have a review of that, that's fine, that can go on the work programme.
Right,
I think there's a
I'll
bit of
retire,
confusion.
Chair.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of confusion. The scrutiny committee, we're not a decision-making committee.
You don't have to, don't tell your granny how to suck it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chair, I don't mean to be disrespectful.
No.
I've been around a long time.
Yeah.
I've chaired scrutiny nationally, not just locally,
Yeah.
but nationally. I understand how scrutiny works, I accept how it works. And I just think that when major decisions are made, and the Constitution is a major decision, that scrutiny should have had a perusal of that before Cabinet made the decision on it. We might have had something to add. You've not given us an opportunity from the scrutiny perspective to say in the Constitution this. I don't know. I'm sorry I'm taking up time.
No, that's fine. No, it's fine.
There's other things to do.
No, it needs to be out in the open, Councillor Isledine, so
Right.
that's absolutely fine. But I do think that you know, it's not this committee's job to agree with Constitution.
We've got to work with it, we've got to know it.
Yeah, and he's absolutely right. So we've committed to review the Constitution, and if this committee wants to have a role in that, then it should be built into your work programme. But I think we need to be clear. We've got a Constitution around decision making, and every report that goes to Cabinet doesn't come to Overview and Scrutiny Committee. That's not how the Constitution's set out.
I'll move across Councillor Creevy. I think you're on.
No, I turned it off after last time, feedback and stuff. Just to move it on, I completely get where Ian's coming from. I think it would be really useful for us to have a copy of the current Constitution as it's been approved, sent round to all members at the moment. It would be also useful to have an idea of when you're saying that you're undertaking a review of the Constitution to make sure that it's in line with the legislation, Tom.
Yeah, I guess it's a review because obviously with the devolution bill becoming an act, that's going to give us additional powers as well. So it's almost like it serves two purposes, Councillor Creevy. It's almost reviewing what's there now and making sure we're baking in what needs to come in the future.
I think my concern is that when we're relying on the Constitution as it stands to do a call-in. If we haven't got a copy of the current Constitution, how can we do a call-in and how can we scrutinise what we're doing? And I think that's Ian's concern as well, and that's my concern as well. So if we can all be sent a copy of the current Constitution as it stands,
yeah.
and then any updates as and when they stand. I know stuff will come through Cabinet, but it would be useful to get that.
Yeah, absolutely. We can make sure that's circulated. The current live Constitution is always available on our website.
It's not the easiest website to use, to be fair.
No, so we're happy to share it, happy to circulate it to the committee.
Can I come in there?
Yeah, 2 seconds there, Councillor Nelson.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, a couple of endorsements really of colleagues, Councillor Creevy and indeed Councillor Hazeldine there, in terms of the call-in that we satisfied ourselves as going through the correct protocol and process. We were then dismayed, to say the least, to find that couldn't be processed because of what has been termed an error. So therefore I think it's crucial for this committee to continue to work in that respect, to have that constitution readily available to us as a separately emailed document or whatever, so that's with us all of the time, particularly as if Rachel's saying the website is sometimes a little bit difficult to navigate. Because I know that there was an awful lot of work going on by colleagues to get to that correct process and protocol around that call-in, to find that we were just stymied immediately as a result of an error, not on our part, therefore we couldn't fulfil our role.
Might bring Hugh in here, so just to be clear, the call-in wasn't stymied because of an error, the call-in wasn't valid in line with the Constitution?
Did you just prove the point, Tom? It wasn't in line with the Constitution.
Yeah, but it was,
But,
well,
but
legislation.
the statement on that still said the Constitution had errors in it that made you had to use, that Mayor Houghton was allowed to use something earlier because the Constitution didn't cover what he was doing. And in another, there's a document that there isn't a raise it, in the document there it says about the Scrutiny Committee doing something in line with the Constitution, but nobody in here didn't know that we changed it, which is why I raised the thing that it wasn't correct.
We just let Hugh explain.
Yeah, no, so obviously the call-in was around the difference between the CA's powers and mayoral powers, and the way the Constitution was set out at that point. It tried to override what was actually the legal position in statute. So that's what kind of overrid the call-in at that point, is that it wasn't valid because we have to follow national legislation as approved. So the call-in was to do with the mayoral powers, and the mayoral powers have to sit with the mayor, and the combined authority can't override those additional powers. So I mean, that was kind of fully set out in the letter. I appreciate that it was frustrating. It was something that we had to deal with at the time. And as Tom said, you know, it's gone to Cabinet. We've made those amendments to the Constitution. And as Tom said, you know, as part of this kind of process of amending the Constitution, it is a living document, fully committed to working with all partners.
Before we move on, I'll ask Rachel, but before then, I just want to inform the committee that a couple of months ago I did ask Connor for copies of the Constitution, not only for this committee, for the TVCA, but for all the mayoral development because they all have separate constitutions. So I did ask Connor for us all to have a copy of that, because the Constitution is all getting updated. It seemed a bit pointless until they were updated. Because as I say, there are live documents and they're changing all the time. So it's difficult, you know, we could have a copy today and tomorrow could be slightly different because there are the monitoring officers quite legally can change certain things. That's in the Constitution again, I think, that the monitoring officer can make minor changes. So they'll be done all the time. Rachel?
I'm really conscious we need to wrap this up,
yeah.
But I think fundamentally the frustration is that we are elected members, we are ordinary members of the public, we are not lawyers, we are not, you know, anything fancy barristers or anything like that. You know, we are ordinary members of the public, we are lay people. We should not be expected to, when we're asking questions about something, we go to the Constitution, which is a legal document as it is, we shouldn't be expected to have to go to the overarching legislation that set up, you know, the mayoral the combined authority in the first place. So the point is that we need that Constitution to be right, we need to be able to rely on that. We shouldn't be expected, you know, I spent hours working on that, and you know, I'm not paid to do that, I'm not paid to be here, you know, I spent a lot of time working on that with colleagues, not just on my own, but You know, we shouldn't be expected to have to look at legislation just to double check, and that was the frustration, and it's incredibly frustrating when we put in lots and lots of work into this, and we're doing it for nothing. And I'm not saying we should all, you know, but we're doing it because we're doing it for the right reasons. We're doing it because we're responsible for the members of the public who elected us into our positions in the first place, and we do it because we're responsible to our communities. And when we see something, and when people are saying to us they're frustrated about this, that and the other happening, decisions happening, we call in a decision to be told that, oh, our constitution's wrong, we've got to go to legislation instead. Well, how are we supposed to do our jobs? And I'm a little bit cross now, and I will calm down. But really, that's the frustration, and that's the really frustrating thing, is that I'm not surrounded by a bank of lawyers that can do this. Do you know what I mean? We're ordinary people.
No, I absolutely get the frustration, but just to be clear, so there was an error in the Constitution that goes back many years, which we accept there was an error in the Constitution, and we clearly want to get to a point where there aren't any errors in the Constitution. But that decision around the appointment of a chair for a mayoral development corporation is a mayoral power that's set out in legislation. And so the fact our Constitution was wrong, I understand, has created confusion and tension and frustration, I get that. But we had to correct our Constitution because there is legislation in place that says that is a mayoral power, and there's nothing that we can do to override that. I appreciate the frustration, but as soon as we were aware of the issue with the Constitution, we put it right. Now going forward, as I said, we've recognised we need to do a full review of the Constitution to make sure that we're picking up all the new powers coming through the bill. We've talked to informal Cabinet about it last week, about how we're going to engage Cabinet, and I'm more than happy to make sure this committee is engaged in that process as well.
Thank you. Well, just to wrap it up, I'll finish with Ian.
Just on that point, what's been said. But the reality around that was the response we got for the turn down of the call-in was done in legal speak. Yeah. I read it half a dozen times, still couldn't get my head around it. I've read the legal document. I have a degree in labour law, and I couldn't get my head around it. And I asked for an explanation. I asked for it to come here and some officer, any officer, explain to us the difference in the two things. That was not given us. There's another frustration. That's the thing I'm on about. I was working together. If we understand what we're doing, we can ask questions about the decisions that's being made and get answers. We understand better. That makes us better the next time that sort of thing crops up. The only thing we've learned as a scrutiny committee from that calling is it's very difficult to get one through. And it felt like, I'm not saying this is the truth, but from our perspective as members, the work that was done on it was tremendous. You read it, it was written right, it was put in words that were easy to understand and asked for explanations that we understood. And we got an explanation that we couldn't understand, but nobody explained to us. We just got a letter that you couldn't read and nothing else. I want us to work together. So the next time we do one, we know what page we're on. So I'm just trying to get that continuity between us and you, yourselves, the Constitution and thing. I mean, I understand that local combined authorities are a minefield. They're a lot more complicated. I mean, local government's bad enough. But combined authorities are more difficult to understand the legislation around them. So we need that communication.
No, I take all that on board, but I mean, do you want to come in?
Yeah, no, I mean, just to reiterate, I mean, it is a very complicated area. The actual law is set up from the London Mayor, and then it's been conferred onto different parts. So it is an absolute minefield. It is very difficult to explain without becoming overly legalistic. I recognise the work that went into it, and it was very well written, and we understood it. It's difficult to try and explain it in a different way that's not legal, because it is such complicated. We're actually working with central government as part of the devolution bill, and they recognise that it's not really fit for purpose. The legislation there, it needs to be tidied up. So I appreciate your frustration and difficulty that had to understand it was very difficult to actually draft as well. So yeah, I fully recognise that. Hopefully we will get changes when it comes to the devolution bill to tidy up the legislation, so it is much easier to understand for everyone. And we're obviously a bit of a front runner here in that, you know, there's only limited mayoral development corporations set up, and we have 3 of them in the country. There's only one that's kind of up and running, so it is a difficult piece of legislation to understand, and it is recognised by us.
Thanks for your patience, Chair.
I'm just going to finish, but I'll give Lynn a chance.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. Just to be clear then, because I haven't seen the changes in the Constitution, I agree with the first one. The changes in the Constitution now, how long do the chairs of the development corporations, what's the time scale for them to sit as chairs? Is it 1, 2, 3 years? Anyone know?
I don't think there are. I think it's in the gift of the mayor, I believe.
I'm not.
That's not in the Constitution.
We'll have to take that away.
It's a chair for
I'm not sure if we did it. I'll have to take that one away. I'm not sure if we did it. I think they've been appointed on a time frame, but I'll have to double check.
So the next time, if the time frame is say 2 years from now, is the change in the Constitution, does that allow us to really look at the mayor having sole responsibility for nominating that chair?
It's because it's a mayoral power set out in legislation, national
That
legislation.
hasn't changed.
No, so that's always been the case. Our constitution was wrong because it wasn't stating that, and that was where the issue has arisen.
Right.
But obviously our constitution can't override national legislation, and so we've had to correct our constitution to align with national legislation. And it's a mayoral power that only the Secretary of State can confer onto another body.
Councillor Beale.
I think you might have answered that in the last few words, because I was always told that there was a difference between a power and a duty. You know, in that if you have a power, you may or may not take up that power, whereas if you have a duty, you must do it. So if you're saying it's a power, then it could be an opportunity to have an arrangement, you know, that where you don't totally exercise that power in ignorance or you know, to the exclusion of other stakeholders.
Thank you. Right, we're going to move on if we can, otherwise we're going to run out of time. Can we note the report and the supporting information, please? Thank you. We'll move on to the work programme if we can. The recommendations are members are asked to consider the matters outlined in the report and agree or amend the work programme as presented as an appendix to the report. Agree to 2 areas, although it could be more than 2, of course, for the establishment of subcommittees. Agree the membership of the subcommittees and the chairpeople for each committee, and delegate authority to the chairperson and subcommittee to agree the terms of reference of the subcommittees at the first meeting. Yeah.
Ask a question.
Colin's just going
to quickly say something. Obviously, as per your agreement at the end of the last year, there is automatically a finance and resources subcommittee that will need a membership, and an education, employment and skills subcommittee. So it's the other additional topics on top of there.
Yeah.
So obviously those subcommittees, as is prescribed in the recommendation, would go and decide their terms of reference and what they wish to look at. So it's the other topic areas that would be intended for discussion, but pass to Councillor.
Yeah, thanks. So we've already got an education and employment subcommittee, and we've also got finance and resources subcommittee. So we can actually agree 2 more today. Yeah,
Just, what I'd like to do would ask members if they would support the idea of having a lead scrutiny member to, want of a better word, shadow the cabinet members' portfolios, so that when we come to doing work groups and subcommittees, there is already a named figure within the scrutiny committee that is linked to that area. And then technically then we'd have 5 subcommittees, wouldn't we, with an identified scrutiny member as the link between that and that thing. Which means when it comes to doing the work programme and setting up a task and finish group, that there's already a link between the cabinet member and the scrutiny committee that can develop that, and the relationship can build, will enable the scrutiny to undertake that work and be that responsible sort of thing. The other thing that I would ask that happens is, particularly with the finance committee, is it normally has been only meeting at the Christmas New Year time to actually overview the finances. what I'd like is, and I'm hoping that members will agree, that that committee would also have the ability to set up task and finish groups to look at parts of finance at a detail. It is a big budget, it's a big area, and getting a financial report that says we've got £1 million in the bank, or £100 million in the bank, and we've got a £100 million investment, is all well and good, but it would be useful for this committee to understand through the finances that what that £100 million investment is used for, how the return on that is, what the best value is on that. You know, if you're going to, I'll pick on Tees Works again because I love picking on Tees Works. If we give Tees Works a grant out of that £100 million investment, then this committee should be able to look at that and say, what's the grant for? What's the perspective of it? What's the jobs out of it? What's the best value for money for the residents of the Tees Valley? I don't want to look at their accounts, but I just want to make sure that the Tees Valley grant or the allowances that come out of the big finances are followed and tracked, and we know as a scrutiny committee that there is return on that, or value for money for that. It doesn't have to be financial value return, does it? It can be another. But that, I think that needs to be understood how that budget works. And I speak because I've had the burden of finance committee for quite a while, and the frustrations on it. But I think that there should be that link between scrutiny and the cabinet, and allows us to develop work programmes.
I'll just come in on the second point. I'll allow Councillor Blade to take on for the actual development subcommittees. So the way the report is written is that you can make that decision. So the creation of the Finance and Resources Subcommittee, you can decide your own route of where you'd like to go.
You write that down?
It's within the report already. So I think where previously we'd asked you to agree topics from the session, we tried this year to put more responsibility on the subcommittee chairs, because in previous iterations you were delegated as a chair, but then you were going back to the full committee for approval, and it was a back and forth approach, whereas we're trying to make it so subcommittees have a bit more ownership of the area they're looking at and have a bit more control over it. We do also have Joe Moore on the call, who is the interim finance director, and we're intending to have a set-up meeting with that subcommittee to understand what direction you'd like to go. And one of the points, I think Councillor Blades will come in on it later, is an intention to look at work programming over a longer time period, so there isn't this start in September, finish before PERDA or elections or AGM. So you have an oversight over a couple of years, but I'll let Councillor Blades touch on the first point, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'll go, obviously in terms of references is in the next point, which we'll discuss then if we can. But so we'll go back to the work programme. I suggest, I'm surmising, Councillor isn't doing that yet, that your suggestion is that we have 5 subcommittees with 5 chairs. Bearing in mind that each subcommittee can set their own terms of reference and decide within themselves what they want to investigate. That's how we're changing this year from what we've done previously. So hopefully we can make short-term decisions when something happens and the chair can say, hang on a second, we need to look at this, which is the whole point, rather than having to come back here for us to agree, which is a bit silly really. But I suggest that's what you're proposing.
I just feel it would smooth things out. It enables not decisions to be made per se, but discussions within this committee to be easier.
Yeah.
That, for finance, I could come and say, oh, by the way, there's an economic thing going on that's spending this. Are we happy to have a little subgroup at it? At least, rather than having a discussion here, the person responsible for that area could have spoke to the cabinet member. There could be, round issues. Because we don't need cabinet members' approval, but that relationship would develop the working ability of this committee if there was a relationship. That's what I'm trying to film, is that relationship.
Yeah. Councillor Peavy?
I'll speak up for him. I don't know whether we need a seconder for that, but I would like to second that. And I think I'd like to nominate Ian for Chair of Finance as well. And probably myself for employment education as well.
Okay, that's fine. Has anyone got any proposals on on the working programme.
Yes, I've been sitting here waiting to talk about the rural economy because that was
Yep.
the first on the list. But we seem to have, as often happens with rural issues, we've shot straight over it and gone to the next one. I wanted to raise it. If you look at a map of the Tees Valley, the rural area in East Cleveland is quite a big chunk of it. And of course, rural deprivation issues are quite different from the urban ones. And I know there is only so much time, and there's an awful lot to talk about, but I think it's a kind of distinctive set of issues that we should look at. Obviously, lack of transport is one of the most important issues. We've had our subcommittee on that, but I think it looks a bit different from East Cleveland. So, for example, if you look at the subcommittee's proposals, it asks to look at information provided at bus stops. Now, I remember in the transport plan there was a plan for like 93 live new bus stops, but obviously none of those are going to be in East Cleveland. I think that's fairly obvious. And it also asks to look at integration between train and bus. Well, there isn't really such an integration possible in East Cleveland because the train stops at Saltburn, so it is, it's all buses there. And unless you've got a car or can afford to use Ubers. Now, obviously, the lack of transport, it has economic consequences and also consequences for things like social isolation, both of which are potentially bad experiences in themselves and also quite expensive for the public purse as well, in terms of benefits and also the health consequences that are caused by social isolation. So 2 examples, there is an employment hub at Skinny Grove. Unfortunately, it's not the really dynamic place that the employment hub in Councillor Pallister's patch in Grangetown, which of course is much nearer the big employers and has a lot better transport links. Skinny Grove is one of 11 villages, so you've got to be able to get to the employment hub to get the help there in the first place. And even then, if you get a job, if you get the skills and you get a job, if you're starting late or starting early or finishing late, you can't rely on the public transport at all, which means the younger people tend to leave, which affects the economic viability of the area. On the social isolation side, we know that people who are isolated are much more likely to phone for an ambulance if they feel ill, so that has consequences for the NHS. Now obviously Tees Flex was meant to fill this transport gap, and it was a really good idea, but unfortunately it doesn't really fill the gap. If you try to book a journey, you get a lot of buffering on the screen, and then you get a message that says, and this is like really absurd for a transport service, it says, we're a bit busy at the moment, could you contact us later? Which is not very good for a bus service. So I think in terms of solutions to it, I think better transport links and also more support for small businesses, because that's the real lifeblood, of a rural area would make a lot of difference in East Cleveland. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else got anything for any suggestions for the work programme?
It's not for the work programme, it's just a comment on the Loftus, the new training hub. I mean, we've done that because of the issue with transport, but I absolutely agree it's okay having a training hub, which we need, so that people can get information and advice and support on skills, but then they need to get to the jobs. So on one hand we did pick Loftus because it was in the rural area and we needed to provide that support and advice. But on the other hand, once we've trained them up and we give them the advice, we do need to start looking at better transport links to get them.
I think the suggestion from Councillor Hazeldine is that we continue with the Transport Committee who could then look into rural transport and again education and the work programme would look at the rural education. So whether we'd need a specific rural committee would be that'd be obviously,
I think the support's there through you, Chair. The support now is there. It's a brand new training hub.
but that's obviously...
Much more swanky than Grange Towns, to be honest.
Oh.
But it's getting them from the training and the skills developed to getting them into the jobs, into Tees roles, into other roles. And that's an issue.
Yeah, but I would be happy for it to be within the existing. Yeah, within the
I think it's just worth noting the portfolio titles for ease, so you can see where the categories may fall into. So Mayor Cook is Inland Investment and Finance, I believe, so he's taken up as well. Councillor Harrison is Creative Place. Councillor Evans is Education, Employment Skills, which we already represent. Councillor Brown is Business Growth and Net Zero, and Councillor Harker is Transport and Infrastructure. So those are the sort of direct or thematic areas that they are within. So as sort of pointed out there, Councillor Halloway, there is probably some elements that will fit into whichever area. I think that's where, if this is, as the committee has agreed, to have 5 subcommittees, it's nominating chairs, nominating membership, and then we'll have a meeting with the respective chairs of each of those groups to assign to the right portfolio lead or director, and have those initial conversations to drill down the specifics of what they're going to look at. But it's just to put on the table what the areas are. So.
Is there a committee where, or subcommittee where the needs of small businesses would fit?
I'd say business growth under Councillor Brown would probably be
business growth.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Lee?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm a little bit stuck here, and I'll take your guidance. We talked, the proposal from Councillor Heseltine that I would fully support is about, not shadowing, but breaking the responsibility along the lines of the cabinet portfolios of a range of subcommittees. I've always thought, well, why are you not looking at the other bits? And I'll give one strong example: is culture. There's investments that are taking place from the combined authority. I believe all the areas of its footprint. But there's, I don't see anywhere where that's given any deep dive or constructive, constructive reflection and suggestion. Now, I don't know whether and this is where I seek your guidance. Do I propose a review on culture, or does it get picked up? How do we pick up this proposal from Councillor Heseltine of breaking it down into those 5 components? Where it will get picked up, because it will be one of those components.
So as part of the recommendations for this meeting, it's to establish the subcommittees. So where Councillor Hazelby has proposed and Councillor Creevy has seconded, I've taken it as we will have those 5 groups, but what we now need to move to is nomination of chairs for the respective. So Creative Place and Investment, each of the portfolio areas, and then when the subcommittee meets, they'll go into the specifics of what they'd like to look at in particular. So on the basis of portfolios, I believe Creative Place will probably be the area that is best to look into that. It's not to say that there won't be communication between the subcommittees. I think one thing we've addressed so far is that we want you to have these open conversations and nothing's done in isolation, because there may very well be a situation that the Inward Investment, Finance and Resources Subcommittee are looking at something. You start as well, whoever's further on, just the passing of information, but we will get to that stage in the meeting.
Yeah, Councillor Creevy?
So in light of that, can I nominate Councillor Beale to be the chair of the bit that's overseeing Creative Place?
Yes.
Seconded that.
Right, we'll
Before
start with
that, before we do that, Chair, sorry. What I'd like to do, Chairs, is make some suggestions, but I think you as chair, and maybe the vice chair, link with officers to discuss around how that can be done. And I think we need to be able to do work programmes on development corporations, and we work out how we do that and what areas we do that. And that includes STDC as well as the others. And I think we need to be the clarity on our partners that are not development corporations that we work with, how we would do that and areas we can look at. One of the big ones I think we need to look at, and the members have expressed concern in this, is the jobs around it. The education one was looking at the youth employment thing and further education, but I think there's a bigger picture than that, and I'm not sure that would sit under education. I think it would sit under economic growth, finance or whatever. And I know I'm giving you a bit of work to do, Chair, but I think if you do it first and make this meeting 4 hours and 22 minutes shorter. The other thing we need clarity on, I mean, I can't remember which portfolio culture comes under, but there will be a heading that, and you're right, we've done a little bit of work on culture over the years, and we've had briefings on culture, but we've not really done a dive into it. And I think you're correct, because I think culture is, you know, it's not what people think it is, it's a bigger subject. You know, if I talk to one of my residents to talk about culture, he thinks I'm talking about ethnic. Culture is a bigger thing than that. It's 1,000 times bigger than just relationships. So there's correctness there. We business and inward investment as well, Chair. I mean, if you have that initial conversation, and we've appointed chairs of the designated area, that conversation can be done outside this meeting and have members prepared for when we come in or where we're going to go.
Okay, well, come.
Is that,
no, absolutely. Yeah,
is it too big, Chair?
Yeah. What I'd like to do is, first of all, let's agree that we will have 5 work programmes or subcommittees, one for each of the areas. So we can vote to agree that, and then we'll move on and see if we can agree. Sorry, Tom.
Just to come into, I think it's a really good idea. Just for the committee's context, that probably means you're going to have to sit on at least 2 subcommittees each. And if we run all that concurrently, that is a lot of your time. We're absolutely happy to support that, but just to make it clear that you're going to be committing a lot of time if we're going to do this properly.
Can I move on? We're going to recommend in the next sections that subcommittee members can join the subcommittees as full members, which that will give us I think
a broader perspective.
That will give us a larger pool to work with.
Give us a bigger pool.
So each member does have a subcommittee member, or most do. Some don't yet have, and I ask all members to have a subcommittee member, and they can join the pool of available people to join these subcommittees.
Spread between 30 people there, not 15.
Yeah.
What, you mean your substitutes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can be part of working groups.
Okay.
And I think we have spoken about that, and it's
and if you have the 5 chairs, the feedback is there's continuity on feedback.
Yeah.
See, we
have a plan.
Yeah, Tony?
Right. I'm just concerned that we potentially are setting ourselves up to fail with the amount of work that we're trying to take on, with the commitments that members have with other areas within the local authorities. If you take on 5 work streams, in effect 2 on each.
Well, they don't all have to be working at once, do they?
I believe that we're over committing and we won't achieve anything, rather than being focused on what's the priorities of the TBC and align up to those priorities rather than going off on different tangents. We're here to be overviewing scrutiny. We're not a select committee looking at a different topic. I've discussed this in previous meetings that we're setting ourselves up to fail. If you want to take on work, you know, I'll support it, but I'm concerned that we'll fail.
Councillor Lewis?
Can I just say that maybe we should try it.
Okay, Councillor Lewis?
I understand where you're coming from. The reality is, we manage it ourselves. It's not going to, I can't see all 5 groups all meeting at once. I think what you'll get is, if there's an important issue in investment or in culture, you'll set that work group up. Whoever's controlling that group meetings can be done on the laptop, they can be arranged easier than, you don't have to come into here. You'll get a direct link with an officer to do that work. I think we'll manage it better. If we manage it, then we won't get in, we could get in the scenario on about, I have no doubt about that. But if we manage it, we'll make sure we don't. And I agree, if you don't try it, because my opinion at the minute, they say if it's not broke, don't fix it. This is broke, we need to fix it. It's the opposite way around for me at the minute. I have every confidence in every member in this room. There's some really knowledge in this room that I think we need to utilise, and it's an opportunity for us to get stuff done. I agree with Ed at one point, but...
Yeah, if I can just go back, last year you had 2 work streams, 2 different subcommittees, and members couldn't get to those subcommittees. At times they were not quorate, because people couldn't commit to those things, and now you want to more than double it.
A work group and a subcommittee don't have to be quorate.
So I think it's time and capacity.
Can I just say that, you know, we're the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, so we've got to scrutinise. If we don't scrutinise, then there's no point in us being here. And there's things going on that we're not looking into because they're not on the work programme, which is why we're kind of changing things the way we're doing, where individual chairs can decide what to scrutinise. Rachel Creevy?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just conscious we should probably move on.
Yeah.
It's been proposed and seconded. Can we, if we need to, can we go to a vote?
Yeah.
And just before my point, Councillor Creevy, I was just going to say, I believe, Councillor Hazeltine, you've made, you said earlier to effectively delegate to the chair and the vice chair to have these discussions with officers. So principally, I think the best thing we could do now is appoint the chairs. When we then get into the terms of reference for the agreement on substitutes, we can leave it open-ended to create the membership after this meeting, so go to all 30, because there are members present.
That was the plan.
Yeah, so there's members that substitute aren't present, so you can open it up a bit more and then we can see if we need to level it out. But I think, obviously, as you say, the sort of delegation to the chair and vice chair to work with officers is probably the sensible route to work through this more thoroughly afterwards. Just pass it back to make some points.
Right, thank you. So let's see if we can vote in favour or not of the proposal, which is 5 subcommittees. All in favour? And against? Okay, so that's carried. Thank you. So the 5, the names may change. We'll work with Scott on this, but generally, education and employment and skills subcommittee chair. Any nominations for that?
Rachel.
Councillor Creevy?
Could I say, just to really support something that was said earlier, there were times when only Councillor Creevy and myself attended the education skills last time, and I don't want to get into a situation where only the chair is dealing with the direct cabinet member that deals with the same area, and you've got one it's a scrutiny role, and you've got to be fair in this, and you've got to make sure you thoroughly scrutinise. The membership of the Educational Skills Subcommittee last year was appalling, whether it was on Teams, where we sometimes only had 2 attending. It was really dire, and to be part of that and then not create anything, because we didn't make any recommendations. We agreed it needed to continue.
We did make some recommendations.
No, we meant some,
yeah, but very few, very few. I would like to continue on that if that committee goes ahead.
Well, I think we're going to discuss who's going to sit on, but obviously we would note that you want to be on that committee. Councillor Hall.
I think, sorry, just on that, Lynn, I have plans to sort of manage the attendance a bit better this time round. I've got a plan in my head on how we're going to do that a bit better.
But we haven't to lose sight of the fact that you would be shadowing if that's how the system works.
Shadowing's the right
my
word.
colleague, colleague from Stockton, Councillor Evans, who has that portfolio, and it's whether we can be assured that scrutiny does actually occur. That's my only concern.
It's been the arguments in the opening of the meeting, to be fair.
Yeah, okay, thank you. We'll move on. So, Councillor Creevy, anybody else want education and employment? No, okay, so we'll say that's Councillor Creevy. Finance, any nominations?
Councillor Hazeldine, I think.
Certainly.
Okay. Anybody else want to do that?
Can I just put a little request in that Councillor Nelson also sits on that if we can?
Yeah, that's noted.
Skills in that direction.
Yeah.
Is that right? Sorry.
Thanks for creative places, any nominations?
Councillor Beale, I think.
Councillor Beale, any more? Okay, Councillor Beale, you'll be the chair of the creative places. Business growth and net zero. Can I nominate? Councillor Pallister? Yeah. And I think the last one was inward investment, is it?
Transport infrastructure.
Transport infrastructure, sorry. And can I nominate Councillor Branson, who's got a huge...
It's his bag, isn't it?
I've spoken to Councillor Branson outside this meeting in respect.
As soon as he has them, he's unbounded.
Yeah, yeah, correct. Okay, thank you very much. Do I need to do anything else on this one? I don't know. That's it, yeah.
So we're delegating the membership.
Yeah.
So we've already agreed that the delegation will come to us too.
Yeah, so that's fine. That's fine. Right, thank you very much. We'll move to number 8, terms of reference. It's recommended that TVCO Review and Scrutiny Committee propose amendments to the committee's terms of reference for consideration and delegates responsibility to the Governance and Scrutiny Officer to enact and agree proposal of the committee. That basically means the chairs can sit and agree with Connor of what your work programme will be.
Can I tell you the bits?
Yeah, you certainly can.
Committee call, first page, committee carries out its work in accordance with the terms and reference of a living document, good practice. Get it. Then go on to the document itself. Purpose of overview and scrutiny, monitor the decisions of and other actions taken by the Cabinet and the Mayor, subject to reports, blah blah blah. Review the strategy and policy of the Combined Authority and holding the Mayor to account, page 2. When you get to page 3 and it says function, doesn't mention the Mayor. Review and scrutinise and made no actions. You connect on, it does something. Make reports, you make them reports to the, which are responsible to the Mayor of the Combined Authority. Make it when the Mayor find the right with respect to discharge. Have I got that? Functions, yeah, it's under functions. The two don't add up.
What do you mean?
Call in and review scrutiny decisions. Right, call in and scrutiny decisions made by the Combined Authority but not implemented and in direct decision and not implemented under the review of scrutiny. It doesn't say call in decisions made by the Mayor.
Well, this committee, rather than subcommittees, we've talked about subcommittees here now, this committee has...
This is the terms of reference for the full committees.
Right. Have I missed something like it? I've misinterpreted it.
I think yes, it sounds like you have. Does anyone...
No, I did, I'm sure I read it right, unless my glasses screened up.
Councillor, I think the point I'd make on this report is that this is the opportunity to change the terms of reference. So the terms of reference as appended is the current version as it is. So if there are issues,
it says, that's the bit, the word responsible.
Yeah.
The responsibility of the Mayor of the Combined Authority. And I'm not happy with the word responsibility of the
So if you're unhappy with the wording as a committee, you can agree that we can amend that. So I think that's where the delegation's a bit clearer to say, have an open discussion where there's issues. Right. So if you're not happy with that, the committee agrees.
Just going back to the call-in where we lost out because it was a mayoral decision and not a constitutional one. And I think in there needs to be clarified.
Yeah, so this is the point of the review as well, because there's areas such as not defining the role clearly, or defining the role of the chair and the vice chair. There are elements within the Constitution that Councillor Blaze will have to support us on. So if we need to urgently hold a meeting and we're after the point of publication, we go to them. But that isn't within here. So I think There's a few suggestions within the detail of thematic areas that might be helpful to consider, but overarchingly it's for the committee to decide what they want from their terms of reference. We've had a few previous discussions on this, Councillor Blades, and even in work programming, but it is an opportunity to change it.
Councillor Beale?
Thank you. In the light of the decisions made at the last agenda item, I think that perhaps there's a little bit of tidying up to be done in terms of the paragraph about membership and reference to temporary working groups. You know, that perhaps.
Yeah, I think what.
Yeah, and maybe you know, some kind of you know, some kind of understanding about receiving recommendations and reports from those groups to the, or having, you know, so basically looking at the relationship between the Overview and Scrutiny Committee and those working groups. Yeah. Those standing, what will become standing subcommittees.
So I think the point of this is, this will not be the full agreed terms of reference from today. So the delegation is, we have a discussion about what you want changed. I'll make amendments in consultation with the Chair and Vice Chair, and then it will come back for formal approval at the meeting in October, subject to all of the meetings being approved today. So any suggestions where you think that it would be helpful to have, we will include in the draft version, subject to everything. So it will come back in a more formal setting after the draft has been approved.
I think, to be fair, what we're reading is last year's terms of reference, and obviously we're changing a lot of things what we're doing this year, so it will change.
Just a small point, and we've had this discussion. I mean, 2 years ago we agreed that the scrutiny we would meet 6 times a year, which was at the time I thought that's excellent for us. It means we can get more done rather than the 4 times. And we got the extra 2 meetings, and then they were quite happily stolen away for us. My words, nobody else's. And they were used for mayoral question times. Can I express my disappointment, not in not getting the mayoral question times, but losing that opportunity to think. And I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, we discussed this, haven't we? Yeah, we have discussed this, and the way I did it last time with the mayor is that I restricted him to an hour, so we still had an hour. But I think what I'd like to do is increase the time to an hour and a half so on the 2 mayoral question times, we increase the meeting time to 2.5 hours rather than just 2 hours, and we restrict the mayor to an hour, and then we've still got an hour and a half.
So if there was a single item agenda, you can get through something.
Yeah.
So, mirroring what Councillor Blades has said there, at the end of, so the final item is to agree the meetings for the rest of the municipal year. So there are 6, including this one, scheduled in, and you'll have the subcommittees as well. But it's entirely up to the committee to extend those meetings. Just for procedure, I'd put down mayoral question time to identify that is the 2 agreed points where the mayor will attend, just to clarify that those are the specific dates for that. But you can have any additional items in advance if the chair, vice chair, or members raise that they need something bringing. Just at this point, it's only put down those items subject to agreements for work programmes, but it is a live document, so we will add additional items as and when needed. So, for example, I believe October is a mayoral question time, but we've just agreed that we'll be bringing the terms of reference there. So that will be an additional item that will already be on top of that. It's just we've not programmed additionally outside yet, but subject to changes.
I don't want to put it in writing that I'm going to restrict questions to the mayor to an hour. I mean, generally that's what I do, and that's what I'll plan to do for the rest of the year. But obviously, if there's lots of questions to the mayor, then that will go on. But then we'll just extend the meeting so we get through everything. Is that okay? Councillor Lindsay,
Yeah, I understood that. Well, I just wanted it formally noted that, well, you know, mate. Another hand grenade in and...
so can we agree the terms of reference review, and that will continue as a live document, and we'll bring hopefully the final document to the next meeting in October. Can we agree that? Thank you. We'll move on to our annual report. This is to receive and consider a report from the Governance and Scrutiny Officer providing the draft annual report.
I'll take it as read because, as members will be aware, we circulated the draft in June.
Yeah, I have my nice picture on it, yeah.
I'm not good with photography still, so I'm glad that you're able to share one. I received no comments back from members, and it was recirculated when we sent the original draft of these papers. So I'm hoping it's taken as read and that members are happy for us to submit it to Cabinet as your approved report. Obviously there isn't a date included on it because it was subject to you approving it, so if it is agreed today, I'll ask that it was agreed on the 10th and we'll submit it to Cabinet as your annual report. It'll be uploaded. So, thanks, Councillor.
Thank you. Any questions on the annual report or any comments? No? Okay. Can we approve our annual report and agree to submission to Cabinet for endorsement, please? Thank you. Moving on to 10, delegate decisions. To receive a list of delegate decisions covering the period of April 2025 to August 2025. I take it that's the report is read. Anybody got any questions on the delegate decisions? Okay, can we recommend that we note delegate decisions, please?
Sorry, there was one thing.
Yeah,
it did talk about South Station. Is that South Bank Station?
South Bank, yeah. Sorry, yeah. There was,
no, that's all right.
Yeah.
I'd assumed it was,
Yeah.
but I mean, it said it refers to it further down.
Yeah, it is.
It confused me for a moment.
Apologies, that'll be my error when I've copied it over.
Okay, can we note them, please? Thank you. Date and time of next meeting. Connor's already spoke about that slightly. The dates are on here. We generally go for 2 hours, but sometimes we'll do less. But we will keep things open that we can extend that to the next half hour, especially on the mayoral question time dates in the 15th of October and the 29th of April. So can we agree that, please?
Agreed, Chair.
Yeah. Any other business? I don't believe I haven't got any. Has anybody got any other business?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. 10. I've done 10 delegate decisions.
Yeah.
Do you want to go back to that?
Yeah, one question I'd like to send to me from a resident that she asked me to ask here for clarity on. She made a formal complaint around an issue relating to Mayor Houchin and the speech that he made. The complaint took a while to get through the formal process, but finally she got a response saying that it wasn't the responsibility of the TVCA to respond to formal complaints about some of the mayoral things, except that, and that they needed, this would be passed on to the mayor for a response. That's gone over the prescribed time for the mayor to respond to. She was asking if I would ask her yet. Does anybody in the room know what's happened?
Does the mayor have to respond? I'm not sure.
I'll let me take it away and we'll get an update.
I've done with you, haven't I?
Yeah. Anybody got anything else in any other business? No. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you. I think I'll conclude our business and thanks for attending and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Well done, Chair.